Welcome to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life back into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Today, we'll be talking about how imposter syndrome can hurt teams and might be killing your company. And joining us to contribute to the conversation is Tiffany Houser. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you, Jana.
I'm so glad you could join us today. Can you share with the audience a little bit about your background?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Houser, and I am an executive coach, facilitator, and speaker. And I founded my company Evolve back in the end of 2017. And, some of the things people ask is, how did you get there? And it was because of my clients. So I had no intention of starting a corporate coaching company or a corporate facilitation company. Yet I was a coach working with leaders individually one on one. And all roads kept leading me into work with their team, work with their department, and so on and so forth. And so last year we started to understand, or not understand, it started to become very clear how many leaders, specifically whether they are new to the team, new to the organization, or they just moved up to a higher level of leadership or visibility, as we like to say as well, that we're experiencing this imposter feeling of not good enough, not seasoned enough, not senior enough, not young enough, all these things. And we looked at it through a couple of different lenses to support, because that's why companies hire us. And so, what was really beautiful was last year, people came to us and said, I feel like an imposter. And that's when we knew, okay, we need to aggregate all this work together and start coaching directly on what people are experiencing rather than leadership capabilities and the general approach to talent or leadership development, because we also saw how that was affecting teams as well. And
Mm.
so my background is I used to work in hospitality. I used to work in the digital space. And so now, with all of these different experiences and bringing my own self into the coaching engagements and even the facilitation, because most of our facilitations are experiential. So there's a lot of interactivity. Uh, yeah, so it's been a roller coaster journey, and just thrilled to work with companies and leaders that actually see the gift and the opportunity in looking at our belief system, which can seem like a taboo topic in a corporate enterprise, and really looking at what are the dynamics I have with myself and my team that is working. Let's amplify that. And then what's not working, so we can identify it. So not just fix it right away, but identify what's happening so we can understand how to transform it and how to shift the dynamics so we can move forward.
Excellent. So, well, let's start with a little grounding. What are the qualities of imposter syndrome? How does that play out in how a person behaves at work?
Yeah, it we've come to a theory and a conclusion that there's two common experiences. The common imposter feelings, which I think everyone listening has experienced some point in their life, the I'm not enough. And it's also not being yourself, not being authentic in moments. So that may be being the yes person or conforming or falling into that group think,
Mm.
rather than trusting yourself or expressing what you think, what you believe in, and speaking up, if you will. And then the other experience is the toxic imposter feelings, which are the same as the common imposter feelings, yet instead of beating yourself up, which the common imposter feeling tends to do, like I'm not enough, something's wrong or bad about me, the toxic imposter feelings will have you feel that way, yet you will project that out, and most likely out onto your teams, your colleagues, hopefully not your clients or customers. Yet we've seen it with vendors and, uh, all over the place. And really, it's a protection. So
Mm.
there's nothing wrong or bad. And, especially as we were navigating through the pandemic, a lot of people's behavior and a lot of things were being uncovered. And really, a lot of people, what was it called? The quiet quitting. So people that
Mm,
was happening because they were starting to understand I don't have to work here anymore. I can work somewhere else because I don't necessarily need to go into the office. I can work for a company in another state, another region, maybe even another country. And really, what we learned from our work is a lot of people were quiet quitting because of either a toxic colleague or a toxic manager. So those are
absolutely.
the two versions: the common imposter feelings, and then those toxic imposter feelings.
So do you, so one of the things I suppose about imposter, I mean, well, maybe I'll ask you, do you feel like imposter syndrome and this concept of fake it till you make it are the same? Are they correlated at all or not related?
They're similar, yet I'm so happy you brought that up because I used to be the fake it till you make it gal.
Mm,
The distinction in our body of work is the fake it till you make it approach. You're coming from an empowered space. You're not coming from a
right.
space of compromising your self-worth. Nothing's wrong or bad. You're just taking a risk. Now, the
Hmm.
risk, we can look at that risk as, I don't know, maybe a moral thing or an ethical thing. Yet sometimes risks are just that. I don't have all the information. I don't have the data yet. Let's see, here's what I think, or could it be this, or standing in the affirmation without having the actual conclusion, which could be the fake it till you make it. Whereas the imposter is something completely different. It is the disempowered feeling of shrinking down, playing small, not making decisions, not trusting yourself to speak up or share, contribute, or even um what's the word I'm looking for? Contest, because sometimes when
Mm,
you're on a team, you're on a team for a reason. It's not to groupthink, it's not to conform. You're there to
right.
provide your diverse feedback, your diverse way of thinking, your different, unique aspect of why you're on the team. We didn't
Mm,
hire it. Well, I can't say that anymore. But usually a team is made up of we have different people on a team to contribute in their own unique ways to create the final output, whatever the output is. So if we all think and look the same way, it's like proofreading your own work. What's
right.
editing your own work? Well, that might work. Yet we all know, those of us who have had anything proofread or edited, the value and the ahas and the blind spots that are discovered when somebody
Mm.
else has a look at it. So yeah, that's kind of the distinction between the fake it till you make it and the imposter feeling.
That makes sense. So how does that tie then, if you have a leader who is experiencing imposter syndrome, how does that tie to their team? How does it impact the team? How does that play out?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is really interesting because I would say about 30% of the leaders that hired us in the beginning of the pandemic, so late 2020 all the way up until 2022, they were not new leaders, yet they moved into new organizations. So they were new to the organization. So what it was happening to them is their insecurities came out rather than their empowered, confident self. And we know as leaders, or as leaders, that you are confident. This isn't like an either or. You have both confidence and insecurities within you. Just depends what's happening in the moment. And so for the one team in particular, it was causing breakdowns with people on the team who were resistant to change. And so when you are a leader coming into a new organization, you tend to have new ideas, new way of doing things, new strategy, most likely why the company hired you rather than promoting someone from within. Yet, if you don't enroll the entire team on that, this is the purpose, this is the reason why we hired someone from the outside.
Mm,
What tends to happen is internal people on the team, they like the way things were. or they
Mm,
might have a chip on their shoulder because they didn't get the position. They weren't, the company didn't hire from within. And
mm,
so now, even when a incredible, skilled, great leader comes in, they're already being sabotaged by the people who are resistant to change. Yet the imposter feelings start to grow within them because if they are already thinking, I'm not sure, I'm not confident, that tends to eat them up. So they'll shrink down, nothing new will happen. And so the team might experience the same results, which is what they didn't want. Maybe not the team, but the organization, which is why that position was open in the first place and why they hired out. Or we've only seen this a few times. The leader tends to experience those toxic imposter feelings and then becomes a
mm,
micromanager, a aggressive bully. Some people call it a bully boss, where you just everything is their way or the highway. There's no real collaboration, there's no real brainstorming or creativity. It's this is the way we're doing it, and that's it. And as we all know, that doesn't feel good, especially depending on your role or your department. To feel that locked in is just detrimental. And so for the leaders coming into new organizations, or they are new at the first time, 80 to 90% of them have that insecurity of I'm not enough. I don't so it's there. So depending how the team is, it can have that feeling grow. And then the stories we make up, the interpretations we make up about people not attending our meetings, or attending our meetings but not on camera, or multitasking during our meetings, because a lot of people thought that in the beginning of Zoom. And it was just, I'm learning Zoom, or I'm not used to meeting this way. Or, yeah, maybe my kids are texting me. I'm sitting in front of my phone or my computer, and it doesn't mean I am not giving you my attention
mm.
in the moment. So a lot of things can occur in that space.
I'm curious, you mentioned the more bully type boss or the very autocratic boss. And I assume that type of um, leadership style, I guess it could come from fear, so wanting to try to control the outcomes as much as possible, or
Yeah.
it could come from impatience. Um, because it's like collaborating takes a long time, although it means you don't know, or it means that it might create a lot of time on the back end when people aren't aligned. But do you think that that's a imposter syndrome is a frequent cause of that, or are there other causes of that leadership style?
There are other causes, yet
Mm,
the piece, and you hit it right on the nail in our body of work. It is that fear,
mm,
yet the way we describe the fear, because people can relate to that, because fear, certain leaders are like, I'm not afraid of anything. And we're like, okay. So how else can we present this to you so you can at least understand it? It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. We just want you to understand the context and the concept, so that just in case it could be happening to you. So we
mm,
talk about it more in a protection
mm,
language. So we are constantly protecting ourselves. That's normal. Your nervous
right.
system, your subconscious, all of that, like blinking your
Mm,
eyes, your organs doing that's a protection. However, what the ego does, which is in your brain stem, and it's not a tangible thing. It's your sense of self, your identity, your ego. What happens is it usually overprotects us. And
mm,
especially in the workplace, you mentioned a couple of examples, yet what we've seen as the number one example that people overprotect themselves, and you could look at it one of two ways: they want to look good, or they don't want to look bad.
mm,
And so that bully, aggressive, or just you are not enjoyable to work, this is not fun anymore. And not that we're here to have a fun time, yet work can be, and in my belief, it gets to be enjoyable. It doesn't have to be fun, and we're over here hooting and hollering. But that overprotection is really what either brings a person all the way down into the shrinking down into nothing. That's what common
Mm,
imposter can do to you if you let it take you all the way to the depth of its strength. And then the depth of the imposter uh, feeling is that I am going to project everything out, control it all, as you had mentioned, control it
mm,
all. And now we are most likely trying to force square pegs into round holes. We are most likely not in our critical thinking. In fact, you're not. If there's toxic imposter feelings going on the team, rarely is there critical thinking, problem solving, curiosity, or creativity, innovation. Those things tend to not be there.
mm,
So it's very clear for us if a company brings us in or we meet with a leader or we just hear the description of what's going on, we know exactly what's happening. And so in an age where certain enterprise companies, they're all about innovation, they're all about transformation, specifically digital transformation or product innovation or product transformation. So it is
mhm,
important, and in our view, it's imperative that those imposter feelings are transformed and well identified, understood, and then transformed, so that because they're going to keep popping up, they don't magically go away forever, even though one of our taglines is leave the imposter feelings behind for good. But the way you leave it behind for good is being able to know, oh, there it is. I was just about to not trust. I was about to be impatient, as you mentioned. And really, again, it comes all the way back to that I don't want to look bad or I want to look good. And that's really what has most people in our experience choose that imposter excuse me, the toxic imposter feelings of being that micromanager or bully boss.
mm. And what role, if any, do organizations have in, I guess, one, do they have a role in creating um, leaders with imposter syndrome, or do they have, and if, so that's one question, but also do they have a role in not helping it go away?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I could answer that a few different ways. Yet, I think what would be most useful is the research shows it's still taboo to even talk about this. And the unfortunate piece is we women experience it more than our male counterparts. And so when we feel this way, we tend not to talk about it. So we keep it to ourselves. So the organization might be set up and might want to, have resources and they want to support us, coach us, whatever the case may be. But if we don't express or share what we are feeling,
Mm,
and for a lot of leaders, we might not even know what this is. But I one thing I love to share is imposter, feeling like an imposter, just swipe it out or swap it out with insecurities. Because
mm,
sometimes people think imposter syndrome, oh, that's not me. But I guarantee you, you have an insecurity, or an insecurity has led to your indecisiveness, has led to you projecting out, you know, being frustrated or irritated or short with somebody or impatient. Um, and our insecurities have left us just like questioning ourselves, like, should I, shouldn't I? And that, that goes back to the indecisiveness of overprotecting, because really what the ego is saying, if you do pick something, you're responsible.
mm,
When when we share with leaders, even when you don't pick something, you are responsible. So even in your indecisiveness, your leadership reputation is on the line.
mhm,
So everything we're doing in life, whether it's in the workplace or not, is a decision. Red shirt, blue shirt, red shirt, blue pill. Are we saying yes to this contract? Are we saying no? Are we delivering? How are we delivering? How are we not? Are we saying yes to this new hire or no? So the indecisiveness is really a key piece that we support on. And really, it's just a matter of we have a tool called the debrief. and it's really simple. It's just 4 questions. It's elaborate, but just level one are 4 questions. And just taking yourself through a debrief to neutralize what's happening, because when you're feeling like an imposter, you are not in a neutral space, and you are definitely making up things, assuming things that aren't even happening yet, but they're possibilities. And so you're in that, what do they call that? The analysis paralysis, or the
Mm,
overthinking, or in
mhm,
your head. And all of those are you not making a decision. And your responsibility as a leader is to make decisions. Everything you are up to in an organization is a decision. Every day you get an email, you decide how to respond. Every day you go to a meeting, you decide what you're contributing or presenting or inquiring
mhm,
about if you are being presented to. And the same with clients and customers, deciding what package we're going to offer, or how are we going, what's our strategy to renew or, increase market customer share, whatever that may be. And so if you find yourself in this pool of indecisiveness, the first thing is to let somebody know. And here's the other thing. We always, this is one of the things, if we do like a workshop or a retreat, the first thing we say is there's nothing wrong or bad about feeling insecure. It's just letting you know, oh, I'm in a new space and I don't have the quick answer, which usually leaders have. So it feels foreign to not have these quick answers, or the quick gut intuition of, okay, I'm not sure, but this. So when you find yourself in there, just know it's not bad or wrong, because when you start believing or making up the story, it is bad or wrong to feel this way, you're digging that hole deeper for yourself.
So what contribution does a company's culture play into this? Are there things that are more enable the bad behavior, or ones that
Yeah.
better prevent the behavior?
The number one thing, and I've experienced myself when I was with corporate uh, companies, communication. When we do not communicate internally with each other, or we say one thing and we do not walk the walk, we do not deliver, it never materializes or actualizes. That is usually the number one thing. Or depending, if you're a very large Fortune company, we're finding out in the news. Why are we finding out in the news that things are occurring or shifting, or, downside, it's that is the number one thing. And for leaders in particular, it causes so much crisis on a team when the corporate internal communication is poor, because instead of them delivering and creating the work, the outputs, whatever their
Mhm.
responsibilities are, the leader now is combating, I don't, I don't have all the answers. Or even if the leader does have the answer, but was told not to share,
Mhm.
that is a horrible experience. For It's like sitting at the dinner table with the family secret, and everyone knows you have the secret, but you have to sit there and still eat the dinner. It's like when all eyes are on you, you can't eat the dinner. It's like
Mm.
no one's going to let you progress. So now you're saying everything's going to be fine. Let's keep moving forward. These people are in a different state. They're in a distracted, non-trusting state. And it's happening a lot over the last 4 years, because unfortunately, the world shifted over the last 4 years. You can't have a global pandemic and think we're just going to go back to the way things were. And if you thought that, okay, that's okay. Now you get to realign yourself with, we're going in a totally different direction now. And so that's the number one thing we've seen with corporate culture, where if things are not communicated, or we do like these all hands, we're going to do this, this, and that. And then months go by and we never see any of that.
Mm.
Like, for example, my partner's company got acquired a year and a half ago. They went a whole year with no information. So in those first few months, a lot of people left. And
I'm
it was
sure.
like, did but did we need to leave right away? Like it was such a wild, and this is like 40,000 person enterprise. It was wild, wild. And then when it came down
Mm.
to it, their communication and it was terrible. And my partner shared with me, he's been working with some of these people for decades. This is like an industry where they've all stuck together. Great,
Mm,
great group of people. But he
right.
was saying how you could actually see on their faces the discomfort. So we're trying to talk about sales and pipelines and, leads, and their leaders' faces are just like, oh my God, I know this is not what you really want to talk about because you don't even know if you're going to get paid on any of this stuff. And so I know you all have
Mm.
like real questions. So what I appreciated about that leadership team, they actually just stopped the meeting and said, okay, let's just talk about this. We may not have the answers, but I can already tell this is something, there's a big elephant in the room. Let's talk about
Right.
it. And so
Mm,
that right there was a way that even though the corporate culture was creating chaos, that this small meaning in a 40,000 person enterprise, this small team of 20 some people just said, okay, let's talk, let's be adults and talk about this because this is our livelihood. So
mhm,
yeah, that communication piece, yes, it can lead to imposter syndrome and specifically all sorts of imposter feelings, common and toxic. Because common, am I going to keep my job? Are they going to want me? And the new company, like so many things were coming up because of a lack of communication. And again, also understanding sometimes we don't have the answers, but we want to give you
mm,
information. And so a company kind of tiptoes around when to deliver information because they know it can cause a stir if you don't give the right amount of information. So, yeah.
yeah. What about, I had it and then I lost it. Oh, how do you even figure out that, this might be you? Like, how do you, because that's key number one, right? Identifying that you
Yeah.
have a problem.
Yeah. Well, Jana, I want to just share that it's not a problem
Mhm,
because the thing about specific types of leaders is if something is labeled a problem or a syndrome, I'm good. I don't have that. I'm fine. And so they suppress
mm,
it. And that's all you're doing is suppressing it. You're not transforming it, you're not identifying it or working on something else. And so again, I would go back to the insecurity piece and really the best way to decide or to notice if this is occurring to you are in your decisions. Because when you're able to make these decisions no problem, you're fine. But if you are like really in the mire of I don't know. Or this happened to somebody who had a very senior role in a very well-known company we know. And he was making decisions so well. That's why he got moved up to a very senior position. Yet in that position, because of the visibility, he wasn't used to being all eyes on him. He now was asking everybody, well, what do you think? Well, should we? I don't know. Well, here's three things. Like, which one of these three things that do you think we should do? That's it right there. The
mm,
indecisiveness, which start with that, which essentially is you are no longer trusting yourself. You don't trust your decision. You don't trust what you want to. You ever, and this happens to me, and maybe this happens to you, Jana. If you're in like an event or a conference or some sort of thing at
mhm,
a round table, and someone asks a question and you want to like answer it, but you're like, is that the right answer? Like, I don't want to raise
mhm,
my hand. And it's because I don't want to look bad. I don't
mm,
want to raise my hand and say the wrong answer because then I'll look bad in front of all these people. That's the imposter right there. That's you
well,
thinking, A, I need to have the right answer. And we have a whole process around the right, wrong experience and energy, the polarity and the dualism of right and wrong, like
mm,
supporting you to get rid of that. And then the whole thing about the attention. So you one-on-one, if somebody one-on-one asks you a question, you don't have, okay, maybe you might take the risk. And it's A, not looking good or not having the right answer, and then B, not looking good in the moment. So you do not any of that happen to you in a board meeting, global meeting or just a regular meeting and you have an idea, or here's what we find on teams, the team members won't ask questions because they don't want to look bad. They might be
Mm.
unclear about something or not understand all the steps. And so instead of raising their, hey, I have a question about step 4. Can you just go through that one more time? They'll walk away not getting that question answered and then work on something that is not aligned or was not the real data. And now they've wasted time, resources, energy in a direction that was not where we were going. And that's one of the biggest breakdowns we see on teams is not having the confidence, and that's a team culture. So you talked about corporate culture. The team
Mm.
culture in our experience is way more important to the individual experience, whether you're a contributor or a leader. That team culture, like how I said, my partner's team culture, they were like, okay, let's clear this up. Even though the company has not, let's create space and get some clarity here and be honest and real with each other.
Mm.
So it really is about that indecisiveness, knowing you don't trust yourself, or just I don't want to look bad. If you have this experience where you need to look good at all costs, that's the imposter. And there's
Mm.
nothing wrong or bad or wanting to, a lot of us were conditioned to look good, get the A, get first place, you know, speak well, speak polished, show up polished. We were trained to look good, whether that
Mm.
is aesthetically or intellectually. So, yeah.
So I'm just curious, going a little further there. I mean, being trained to look good or want to get good grades or whatever, that kind of striving for, I don't want to say perfection because that's a whole nother problem, but striving, to be the best that you can be. Are you saying that's a bad thing, or it just lead to bad behavior if it's kind of handled wrong?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. None of this stuff is bad. It's just, is it working for you or is it not? And
Mm.
yeah, it is leading. If you are suppressing, if you are like living this way
Mm.
and it's working, you have all the results, you feel great, great. But if you're living this way, operating this way, and you're in agony, and that's what most people feel.
Mm.
Because as a leader, like I said, I'm confident I could speak, but if I'm sitting in a thing and I don't have the right answer, but I will judge myself for a second or two before I raise my hand. I still do it to myself. And
Mm.
so, yes, perfectionism is one of the five biggest ways we compromise our self-worth, which is the imposter feelings, perfectionism, overworking, busyness, comparison, and people pleasing. Those are the five ways that shows up. So again, that's another way to identify if this is something you are experiencing. Am I a perfectionist? Recovering perfectionist right here. That's all I wanted to do was look good. I needed to be at
Mm.
the top. Yet I would bulldoze, I would be toxic imposter, bulldoze, like get the result at all costs instead of,
Mm.
keeping those relationships intact. And then the overworking is just either you are personally overworking or you are overworking your team. And another Fortune company where I coached a leader who was new to the team, her senior leader, the company's culture was we do not take meetings after 5 and or phone calls. We don't email. The chief people officer said this in an all hands. This is our company culture. We don't do this after. This leader, this leader's leader was doing that nonstop on the weekends, texting, grinding. I'm like, oh my goodness,
Mm.
this is wild. And then the busyness is you start stuff and you don't finish it because of that indecisiveness and don't want the eyes on you. Because if you finish something, there's a result and you make up a story that you're going to be judged. Oh, I got the result. So now it's either a good result or a bad result, that dualism, that polarity. And then the comparison, we all know that is definitely imposter left and right. But the people pleasing is very interesting. We forget that, and this is classic common imposter because it's the not enoughness. but the people pleaser does that inauthentic thing as well. They they sacrifice themselves to make other people happy because they want to look good, they want to be liked, they don't want to let anyone down, or whatever else goes with that. And
Mm,
so yeah, the whole thing around perfectionism is, in my experience, it tends not to work. But for some people, depending what your role is and what your contribution is, it could work. So
mm. Well, and the
yeah,
reason oh,
yeah.
sorry, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say one thing about perfectionism.
Mm,
Perfectionism leads to procrastination, by the way. So as
yeah,
much
yeah.
as you think, I want to make the best thing, you're actually procrastinating. That's what you're doing. So
Mm.
I just wanted to share that little piece.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I was asking is I see so often it feels like people are rejecting a lot of those founding, well, founding maybe not the right word, but a lot of the traditions that we had around growth and around like this idea, we're like, it feels like we're swinging to the other end of a pendulum, and that side is not great either. Like neither, no extreme, right, is going to be that fantastic, but
Yeah.
we're losing a lot of the things that actually create excellence, right? Like this idea. So mental health, I want to say, is very important, but now we're tossing it around like, oh, I need a mental health day, right? I had a person on a project who just kept taking mental health days, and the project's not going to get done if people are out all the time. Um, and I don't want to dismiss like that, you need to take care of yourself, and but there's a balance to that, right? Like if there's something really going on, then maybe you just need to take time off and go deal with that, versus
Handle
this
it. Yeah.
pendulum of I'm working, I'm not working, because then the team can't rely on you. But it just feels like a lot of those things, in our efforts to be tolerant and understanding, I think there's behaviors coming out that tolerance is creating. I've seen it on teams where there's just so much overreaction now to things. Like if a new policy is rolled out and it's like, well, I'm a leader. Why didn't I hear about this? Why am I hearing about it at the same time on my team? I should have been hearing it about it before. And maybe some of it's imposters in them on their behalf, right? Like they are insecure about their position, and so really want to push their role in the organization. I don't know, but I'm just seeing a lot of these bad behaviors creep in that maybe weren't as common, like replacing other bad behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, if I was brought in to look at something like that, to
Mm,
me, that sounds like a culture or organization that hasn't grounded people into the vision, like the purpose, the vision, what we're up to. And to me, that feels very transactional. And we haven't created the cohesiveness and connectedness, because
mm,
when someone is connected to the vision of the team, it's always the team first. Forget about the company, that's a bigger lift. But we need to know, as individuals, what is the purpose, what are we all up to? And that's not like a workshop or whatever, but it's an important piece that we see missed all the time in the onboarding, even in the interview. So we want to
mm,
know all about this. These interviews are so transactional. So it makes sense that we're seeing a lot of transactional and people flip-flopping and, just using some of the tools and things to, you know, do what they want. That makes a lot of sense to me.
mm,
Yet the opportunity is to get curious. So rather than to, because somebody just did this to me, one of the team, a company that we're working with that's doing a big project for us, I just told them something was occurring, and they replied back with all these policy things. So they
mm,
didn't care about what I was going through, or like get curious about like what I said. Are there other solutions, other workability around this? They just went right into the policy.
mm,
And I said something because this is my body of work. And I just said, Thank you for sharing your policies, yet I think you missed the opportunity to connect with me to find the workability because your policies, they're not going to support where we are right now. And we're a customer
Mm,
who paid in full. We're not paying them on retainer. We paid for this project before we started it. And so mapping that back to employees who, you know, take in time, and we've seen this. So what about the employees that are late all the time?
mm,
So, and that's a topic that comes up quite often. And it's really, this person is not grounded into the why anymore. They don't know their reason why. Or,
mhm,
like you said, there might be a bigger why somewhere else and they get to go handle that. Yet, both of you, not you, Janet, but like both parties are in assumptions. And it takes that communication to find out the actuals. Because
mm,
if you see a repetitiveness of behavior that does not work on your team or for the organization, it is up to you as leaders to get to the actual instead of assuming or making up a story they're bad, they're wrong. Because what if something really is going on and sharing, hey, what if time off might be more supportive? And then, like you said, you could find the resource to step in so that the projects can keep moving forward. And maybe
mm,
this person is coming in and out of the organization, working, not working, because they don't know that's an option yet. And I'm
mm.
just giving you an example. I have no idea, and
Yeah,
maybe the
yeah, yeah.
person does. But there's so many things that people don't know. We be in the I don't know more so again, comfort. We protect ourselves by being in the I don't know rather than taking the
Mm,
risk to connect in and get the actual. And here's the thing, we never need to disclose full actuals of our life. But we do get to be responsible and communicative with our employer to say, I'm going through something. I thought I could concentrate. I thought I could contribute. And each time I come back, it's not working.
mm,
Okay, I had no idea I could take a sabbatical or whatever that is. Or maybe I take full time off and re, you know, come back and reapply. I don't know. But most people, that's someone being in their common imposter of thinking, I don't know, I don't want anything bad to happen when bad is happening because we're not
mm,
connecting and we're both here like angry that you're not showing up and then scared because I don't know, I need this job, or in a scarcity, I need this job, I need this
mm,
income or something like that. Whereas if we just came together, and it's never going to be this person, the person who's in their it gets to be the leader, the people who are leaders to come here and create that moment. That's why HR is such a beautiful part of organizations, because when you have a very well trained and very grounded HR team or person, they can support you creating those moments and even be the
mm,
catalyst and create it for you. But it's really about coming together because, yeah, that common imposter will have us do things that aren't aligned with our values, who we are, and it does tarnish our reputation. And then on the other side, as the leader, we turn that toxic imposters like blaming, faulting other people when just what do I want instead? Instead of blaming people, instead of faulting people, what would I like to have instead? Okay, what I really want, if I'm honest, I want this project to be completed. That's fine.
mm,
So, what can I do? Debrief it. What's working, what's not working, what's missing, what's possible? What can happen instead of digging yourself deeper and energetically deeper into this doesn't work. She keeps leaving or he keeps coming. Like that's not going to get you anywhere. Plus, you're not in your
mm,
critical thinking. When you're in fault or blame, no critical thinking can happen because all your energy is pulled down, needs to come up for critical thinking and come up for curiosity. Down here, we're in a judgment. Up here, we're like, okay, what else could, that's my favorite question because I used to be judgy McJudgers. Remember, I was the toxic imposter who was getting results. I used to
mm,
grind, overwork my team to, oh my goodness. Love you, former team. And so it's about getting curious, like what else might be happening here? And I love to
Mm,
use the classic example of someone cuts you off in traffic. We instantly want to say, "You jerk. You could have killed somebody." Great, that's true. And what else might be true? Maybe
mm,
that person got the phone call we all dread. Maybe
right.
that person's bladder or something, they needed the bathroom ASAP. You know, I'm in
Hmm.
South Florida. Maybe that person had a stroke and like they just passed out like that. Unfortunately, that happens here. So like we can't just come to our first interpretation of that person's bad. They're dangerous. They're this because we haven't really been in our critical thinking to see what else. Unless saying someone's bad,
Mm,
if that's working for you, stay here, keep your energy here. Because for some people that works and it's not wrong or bad. But if you're saying, I'm so frustrated, I'm irritated, and I get people like that, there's a ton of people like that in my family. I'm like, okay, what do you want instead? And then,
mm,
our ego wants to say, well, I want that person to change. You can't change that person. Guess who you can change? The person you look at in the mirror, that's the only person. And the way we shift that is energetically by just reframing what else might be going on here? How else
mm,
can we find a way through instead of getting sucked down into that pit of, you know, frustration, irritability, whatever those feelings or experiences are?
okay, makes sense. Well, Tiffany, this has been an interesting conversation. What three things did you want to leave top of mind for our audience?
Yeah, thank you, Jana. And thank you for the questions. They were so
Mm,
like great places to explore. I think the real top of mind thing is having the insecurities and feeling like an imposter. Nothing's wrong or bad about that.
mm,
And knowing, number two is knowing every person, your boss, the owner of the company, celebrity, we all feel this. Your neighbor, whoever wrote the book you're reading right now, we all feel this. And number three, I'm going to go right back to where we were is what's possible when you are able to step in a new space and get curious about what else is available. So, when it comes to your experience as a leader, someone who's leading a team, what else is available here? So, rather than judging your team or team member, to be the leader and step back and say, what else might be going on? How might I be able to support this person making a decision? Or how might I support myself making a decision? And understanding
mm,
none of your decisions are bad or wrong either. Some decisions work, some don't. And we
mhm.
learn through those moments, not, and that's a whole other growth mindset conversation. But yeah, I
Right.
think those would be like the three things that I would love for people to take away.
Excellent. Um, how do people learn more about what you do or get in touch with you?
Yeah. So you can find us at evolveeq.com, or our new
Mhm.
body of work is called Self Worth Advantage. So you can go to selfworthadvantage.com and you could find me on LinkedIn at Tiffany Houser.
Excellent. Well, it's been great chatting with you, Tiffany, and thanks so much for your insights.
Yes. Thank you, Jana. And thank you, everyone who's listening and watching.
To our audience, until next time, keep your organizations healthy.